There's not too much I can say about this one, as it basically follows in the footsteps of the last Bond film. It's fun to note that both Joe Dante, who directed Gremlins, and Peter Jackson were both optioned to direct at one point, but both were passed over for Michael Apted, the president of the Directors Guild of America. Apted would also go on to direct the recent Chronicles of Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So we jump into Bond 19, which starts off in Bilbao, Spain. I guess Peter Jackson did have some influence in this film. I know it's Bilbao, Spain, but I had to throw in a stupid joke somewhere. There's a confrontation with James and some businessmen when 007 makes his escape through a window using a live human as his anchor. At MI6, M is about to congratulate Bond on a job well done when some acidic resin at the bottom of his shot glass, clues him into a scandal that's about to go down right inside the headquarters. As Bond chases down a briefcase full of money, the case explodes when Bond is shot at by a sniper. Bond engages in a real-life version of Hydro Thunder, where the assassin climbs aboard a hot air balloon and blows herself up. We then get a CGI-laden title sequence with fire and oil serving as the thematic imagery, because this movie is all about oil. What a great plot device to make a Bond movie about. What were some of the earlier Bond films about? Masterminds on exotic islands planning a world takeover, men who could turn people into gold, an ex-MI6 agent turning on his government to avenge his parents' deaths, rising oil prices? The amount of imagination in this concept stifles me. In the next movie, they should just make it about outsourcing or stimulus packages. There's a good one. The villain tries to give everyone free money and Bond steps in to kick his ass and make the world safer for rich people. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to start a political debate, but I hate it when a fantasy film with a fictional character brings in elements from our dreary-ass world to remind us what a shitty-ass place we live in. Spare us the reality, please. Give me a car armed with missiles and a big dude with metal teeth. An oil caper is not a subject worthy of a Bond movie. Now that I've got that off my chest, we end up at a funeral of the late Robert King, the oil tycoon who was blown up with the money at MI6 headquarters. After M, played once again by the endearing Judi Dench, swears her vengeance, Bond gives Q a visit where we get introduced to a successor, the bumbling R, played by John Cleese, who comes off as a Peter Sellers impersonator. R would replace Q in the later films, and although he's a joy to watch, I personally think he should have played the part more straight. I can understand them not wanting to completely copy Desmond Llewellyn, but it's hard to take these gadgets seriously if they're not being given by a serious man.
Fully loaded, I think is the term.
I think.
You're not here to think. You're here to do what I tell you.
So we get a bagpipe that doubles as a flamethrower, a titanium-armored BMW, and a bulletproof jacket that turns into some sort of Pokemon when you activate it. Now, of all the Pierce Brosnan Bond films, this scene right here is the most depressingly profound because the last remnant of a forgotten era dies right here. This would be Desmond Llewellyn's final scene as Q. Llewellyn had been in more Bond films than any other actor, having worked with every Bond except for Daniel Craig. Unfortunately, shortly after this film's premiere, Llewellyn was killed in a car accident. I guess his legacy of gadgets finally caught up with him. Seriously, his passing was the hardest blow to the franchise.
I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
So there's some plot regarding King's daughter Elektra, who at one point was held for ransom by the film's chief villain, a terrorist named Renard. Renard was shot in the head by a consistently traveling bullet that over time has dulled his senses, making him immune to pain. That's the stupidest plot thread I've ever heard. Remember when you were little and all your friends made up their own superheroes? What was the one superpower every bratty kid wanted? Invincibility. So I'm wondering if one of the producer's kids came up with this. Well, Billy, what kind of villain would you like to see in the next James Bond movie? A villain who can't feel pain after being shot in the head. Awesome. Write it into the script. Believing that Renard is attempting another abduction on the girl, Bond goes to protect her. In Azerbaijan, come on, is that even a real country? It is a real country. It's the largest country in the Caucasus region of Eurasia. Seriously, how many of you remember hearing about this in your geography class in high school? It must have been pretty insignificant, huh? Amazing what we find out just by watching movies. So Bond meets up with Elektra, who is supervising the construction of, what else? An oil pipeline. She gives him the grand tour of the pipeline because, you know, all Bond fans love oil, and then go up to the mountains. And here we get another skiing scene. At this point, I really miss that 70s style disco music. Some assholes parasailing on snowmobiles show up to ruin the day, and Bond evades most of them using his Pokeball to deflect the blasts. James goes to visit his old pal Valentin Zukovsky, and at his club uses X-ray glasses to see who's packing, and to look beneath the girl's skirts because we all love a good pervert. Bond gets laid by the girl he's supposed to protect, and at some point he figures out that Elektra's head of security is actually working for Renard. Under a cover ID, Bond heads for Kazakhstan, where he meets a sexy nuclear physicist, Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards. Okay, for a nuclear physicist, she seems awfully underdressed, and I think she's in the wrong movie. The auditions for Tomb Raider are one stage over. So James goes into the underground tunnels where he comes face to face with Renard. Bond's cover ID is blown when Renard, of course, goes crazy and starts gunning down all the guards. Bond gives chase when Renard activates a bomb, forcing James to monkey bar himself back across a chasm where he catches fire. Renard gets away with a bomb, but Bond gets the last laugh because he stole a locator card that can track the bomb. According to the locator card, Elektra had some part in the bomb theft. Interesting. So they locate the bomb down one of the pipelines where Bond and Christmas, so silly, go to chase after it. Bond disarms a bomb for the umpteenth time in his career, and the pipeline explodes. Back at MI6, Elektra finally reveals her true colors and, get this, M flat out slaps the bitch. You go, girl. I have to say, ever since Judi Dench assumed the role, it feels like she's been trying to upstage Bond the whole time. And it's working.
I have to get it back, or somebody's gonna have my ass.
Yeah, did I mention Richards received a Razzie for her performance in this movie? Keep in mind what franchise this is. That's a first for the series. So as it turns out, of course, Elektra is sleeping with crazy boy Renard, the guy who supposedly abducted her, and reveals that she's imprisoned M. They go to have sex, but of course Renard is pissed because he can't feel anything. We know he's pissed because he punches his fist through a wooden box and stares at it, unflinching, for several seconds before they realize, hey, we're not fucking idiots. How do they expect us to feel anything for the villain if the villain himself can't feel anything? Oh, I know. They don't give a shit. So Elektra just becomes a flat-out cock tease by rubbing down her body with an ice cube. Bond goes to interrogate Zukovsky when they're attacked by a bunch of helicopters. This is probably the best action scene of the whole film. One of the choppers has a built-in buzzsaw that just rips the place apart. To our amusement, and Zukovsky's as well, Bond's BMW becomes a casualty, but not before it takes down a few of the enemies with some rockets. Eventually, Zukovsky ends up at the ass end of Bond's stick, where he's faced with either drowning in oil or answering Bond's questions. We go back to M's cell, where after facing off with that conniving bitch Elektra, actually takes the bomb and starts reprogramming it. It's a cool scene because it shows that she has the know-how of the spy world. Hey, they didn't make her the head of MI6 for nothing. Bond gets himself captured, and Elektra tortures him by showing off her primitive chiropractor skills. Zukovsky comes in to save the day and frees Bond before getting shot. Sorry, Hagrid. So after finally killing Elektra, Bond performs a graceful swan dive, boards Renard's stolen sub, rescues Christmas, has a pissing match with Renard, and let's face it, that's all it is. Nothing too impressive here. Hell, the villain can't even feel anything when James kills him, so where's the suspense? And we go out on a lame Christmas joke.
I thought Christmas only comes once a year.
So that's the 19th James Bond film. Okay, I had more to say about it than I initially thought. Despite how many things annoy me about this film, the one-dimensional villain, the lack of action scenes or gadgets, the departure of Desmond Llewellyn, and of course R, that son of a bitch, I don't hate it as much as the fans might. It's definitely Brosnan's least memorable Bond movie, and again, it just doesn't carry the weight of the earlier installments. It looks and feels like a typical throwaway action movie. It's not even as sexy as the earlier films. This was 1999, the last year of the 20th century. You would think, if anything, they would become more provocative. But when you watch the later Roger Moore films, those were close to R-rated. Maybe they were trying to capture a wider audience by toning down the sexual aspects, but even GoldenEye had more sex appeal than this. And that was 4 years earlier. And come on, Denise Richards has done some pretty crazy things. I'm sure you've all seen Wild Things. Come on, her and Neve Campbell shared one of the hottest lesbian scenes ever in mainstream film, and she doesn't even show off any skin in this movie. Richards, you're a Bond girl. Time to start acting like it. So by his third film, Brosnan was already starting to show his age, and again, he wasn't really growing into the role. If anything, he was feeling more comfortable as James Bond, so there wasn't a whole lot of edge to him by this point. I wasn't joking when I said that Judi Dench was starting to outshine him, and she has far less screen time. Not a bad movie, but save this one after you've seen the earlier ones.